episode 48 of the podcast. This week we're talking about using food in the grooming room. I'm going to be breaking this topic down into two main categories. The first is using food to create a happy and fun experience, and the second is using food to reward a good behavior or correct response to instructions. So find out more this week.
You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, certified behavior consultant for canines, certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is where grooming and training meet.
It's something that they aren't going to take if they're nervous. This first part is about using food to create a happy and fun experience. Sometimes we want to create a mood, a good time vibe, a little bit of a party that includes some grooming. So the practice is classical conditioning. And if you remember Pavlov, do you remember Pavlov and the dogs that began to salivate when they heard the dinner bell? It's also known as a conditioned emotional response. You might see that in some of the dog training stuff, conditioned emotional response, a CER for short. And classical conditioning is definitely, these are terms that you'll hear in the training world. I'm not usually a big fan of using food in the grooming setting, partly because I think that for many dogs, or it can cause some problems with the other dogs in the room. Sometimes the dogs that we are grooming are pretty food aggressive, and we might not know that until there's food around. It can also be something that can be a little bit tricky for us as groomers to use. So with that being said, a number of people have said, we'd like to know how to use food in our grooming setting because we don't mind using food in our shop and we do house calls and we don't mind using food there or on the van. So let's talk about a couple ways to use food. I want you to think about it's a great way to introduce something new. Or a person, a place, a sound, something that you think may be challenging. It's a great way to introduce something to maybe a puppy or to an older dog when it's not important to get it done at that moment. And it's just a matter of like, hey, look, here's a dryer sound, whoosh, and some food, right? So here are some examples on how to use it. One of those examples that I think is really good, if you guys can get in the practice of doing this, are happy visits. I remember I worked at an animal hospital years and years ago when I was a tech, and we would encourage people to bring their dogs in, like after spay and neuter and after those first shots, and just bringing them in for happy visits. Get them in, get them exposed to the shop, to the groomers, to the sights and sounds, have some fun, get some treats, get some petting. And we want the puppies to think about it as silly time and some cookies. We used to have at the animal hospital, we'd have them come in, maybe get a weight, get on the table a little bit, get looked over to make it a fun experience and to kind of change their mind about what they think is happening. In the grooming setting, it's a matter of kind of seeing what they're going to enjoy and build on the things that they are enjoying, right? But to add some cookies and some cuddles and some snuggles and some silly, okay? And that can be really, really helpful. So happy visits can be something that we can do with puppies or really with any dog that's getting a little bit nervous. And that can be separate from our grooming. That doesn't need to be a grooming appointment. That can be part of just helping a dog learn to relax around us and not always expect that they're going to have to be groomed. And you know what? I'll tell you, my dogs love our vet because this is exactly what I did with my own dogs. And it's what I did with my dog before that. And, the dog before that, if I had known, gosh, I don't know. I would have done it too, but I think she might have decided that her vet was fun. But being around all of the sounds and the sights without the pressure of getting the grooming done can be really helpful. So it's one of the ways that we can use food and toys and praise and stuff and grooming is to just do these little happy visits. I believe fear-free has their own term for them, but the fear-free training and grooming and vet stuff, I can't remember what their term is. It might be happy visits. So in case I am accidentally using their term, but this is something that we were doing back at, like I said, in an animal hospital I worked at back in 2000. So it's not a new idea, but it really is effective. And it doesn't have to be just with the baby puppies. This could be a dog who's just a little bit wary, who comes in when things are kind of calm and we just fawn over them and send them home again, right? So it's one of the ways that we can use cookies and enjoyment, linking the treats and goodies while something is happening can kind of change how they feel about it. Now, one of the things that you can use is something that's lickable. There are little lick pads that you can with suction cups on them. You can put them on the tub, you can put them on your table, put a little bit of like peanut butter or baby food or, squeezed cheese, something like that. But to have that as something that they're focused on while we do stuff to them. So that's more of a distraction as well as sort of that, happy time party vibe. I'm just not really great with the idea of distracting dogs from what we're doing. I want them to know what we're doing. I don't want them to think if I'm licking peanut butter, someone's going to sneak up and do that thing. Okay? So I want you to be mindful of that. If you're using it as a distraction to help them calm down and not be so super hyper focused on what you're doing, and you're still kind of telling them like, okay, now here's the comb on your tail, combing your tail, you paying attention, while they eat cookies or lick cheese whiz off of a off of a surface, right? It's really important though that the mood remains that of kind of a party time vibe. Of course, the other part with food is that some dogs become way too silly with food, and that becomes a different problem. I want you to kind of think about the dog that is in front of you, that individual in front of you. If this dog is going to become so crazy with food that it becomes the opposite problem, then food might not be a good choice. And what I mean by the opposite problem is the dog who wants to bounce around constantly and you still can't trim around his ear, right? There are some little tiny spots where we are a millimeter from disaster, and it's not the time for a dog to be jumping up and down and hoping for cookies. So I want you to think about helping the dog enjoy what we're doing, not necessarily distracting the dog while we get something done. So if we are using it right, the dog doesn't become frightened, doesn't become worried. And if they do become worried, we back off and they go back to having some fun. And then we gently try again or try something easier. So this is still a training process. This doesn't negate the need for training. And I think that's part of what I see owners doing by accident. Owners are, okay, well, we're giving him food and we're doing all this stuff to him, but the dog is still amped up. This dog is still worried. The dog is still growling. The dog is still turning fast. And they're kind of sending mixed messages by adding food to something that's scary. Because there will come a point where a dog will say, I saw you reach for the peanut butter. I'm going to run away. I don't want my nails done. I think we've all seen something like that. Like, oh, really? The peanut butter? I know what that means. Forget that. Like, we don't want pulling out treats or peanut butter to be the same response as, seeing something scary. Right? We want it to be, oh, cool, peanut butter, we're going to have a good time, or cheese whiz, or whatever we use. I've heard different versions too. So for you guys, if you're thinking just in terms of treats, something lickable can be easier because then you can just move the lickable surface toward them and pull it back. Sort of like, here's the spoon, lick, pull it back. There's still some on the spoon, but to be able to pull it back, give and take. Especially in a grooming setting where you don't necessarily want this stuff all over your hands. I know, like, sometimes you're grabbing cookies and you're getting it all over your hands, but now your hands are just covered in cookies and your combs and your clippers and everything else is just covered in cookies. So if we want to keep things clean, we can also just use like a spoon with some cheese whiz on it or with something yummy spread on it that they lick at. And for those tiny dogs, we also have to think about the amounts that we're using because like the average Yorkie, a couple of cookies that might be fun for a big dog are going to completely fill up their stomach. Like just a couple of cookies, right? So if you have something that's lickable, then you can have like, okay, a couple of licks and then pull it away. A couple of licks, pull it away. So that they're getting a reward, you're getting some fun, they're having some treat, but not necessarily just a crunch and gone. Like licking, they'll spend time licking a surface that's already clean. At least many dogs will. When we're using it just to create a fun experience, really it's up to us to make sure that the dog isn't getting scared. the dog doesn't really have to do anything to get the treat. The dog is just enjoying their time, and we're kind of seeing what we can get away with while they're enjoying stuff and seeing if we can get them to enjoy, hey, let's lick at this while I brush your shoulder. Hey, let's lick at this while I brush your foot. Oh my gosh, that was a fun little part. We're not asking the dog to do anything when we're using classical conditioning. We're just kind of trying to make them think that, oh, this is pretty groovy. I'm enjoying myself. And I like the fact that they brought out the treats. I'm having fun. Okay? So it's one of the ways that we can use treats. And the next part, we're going to talk about using them more as a reward for good behavior, for responding to instructions, a more positive reinforcement approach. Because positive reinforcement is different than classical conditioning. Positive reinforcement is an operant conditioning. So we'll talk about that next. If you're enjoying my podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Using food to reward a good behavior or a correct response to instructions is a little bit different. That's positive reinforcement, and it's one of the ways that we use operant conditioning. So classical conditioning is all about the environment and the dog enjoying the environment they're in. And the operant conditioning is the behavior makes consequences happen. So the dog their behavior is what makes something happen. Now, operant conditioning has been broken down into 4 parts. So today we're just talking about positive reinforcement, which is reinforcement means the behavior we're looking at increases. Okay, we want increased this behavior. This behavior increased or maintained, right, is reinforced. Punished is when this behavior goes away or doesn't come back. So that reinforcement and punishment aren't about our emotions about it. Reinforcement and punishment are about the behavior that we see and the way that it changes. Because sometimes the behavior doesn't change at all. And that means it was neither punished nor reinforced. If it doesn't increase or decrease, it was neither punished nor reinforced. Sometimes it's just us expressing ourselves, telling a dog they're good or telling a dog they're bad, and having no response, no change in behavior. So, the reinforcement is when behaviors increase. Punishment is when behaviors decrease. So that's 2 categories of operant conditioning. Today, we are talking about positive reinforcement, the increase, adding something to increase behavior. Adding is the positive part, like in math, positive and negative, adding, removing, okay? So positive reinforcement, and this has been in a couple of different podcast episodes, so you can review it someplace else. But positive reinforcement basically means the dog does something that we see that we like, and we add a consequence to increase that behavior, to keep that going, to indicate to the dog that that is worthwhile and that is worth their time. One of the ways we can do that is by adding something they like a treat, right? So this is one of the ways that we can use treats. There are other things that we can use too, like petting and praise and toys. And, there are lots of ways to encourage a behavior. Think about things that we accidentally do to encourage a behavior. Like if I laugh at something my dog does, it's very likely he will do it again, either of them, because when I laugh, apparently that's something they enjoy. So, hey, good news, I laugh a lot, right? But when you think about operant conditioning is different than classical conditioning because the dog has to be doing something that we respond to. We're responding to the dog this time. In the past, we weren't. We were just making in the classical conditioning, we were just making the place great. We were making everything fun. This time, we're responding to the dog's actions. So when we add food, the behavior could be something that the dog just happens to do that we liked, or it could be something that we're asking the dog to do. So as an example, if a dog's being wiggly while you try to scissor around their eyes, once they're still, give a treat, right? So you think about like, oh, I just finally got that still, give a treat. Instead of what we often do as groomers where the dog is still, so we scissor. The dog is still, so we clip her. The dog is still, so we move on and keep working and keep working. If we're talking about earlier training, then I think it's important to kind of say, all right, now I'm going to back off a little bit and tell you that that's what I wanted. Now, see if they'll give it to you again and again and again, because the more they realize, oh, still is what she wanted from me. And of course, when I say still, that depends on what we're doing. For eyes, I want still, right? Other things we might want, like ears to perk up. We're not looking at any particular behavior that we want to reward right now. I'm just kind of giving an example, right? I don't want you to think, it's always about when they're still. Like if I ask my dog to run to me and they run to me, that's the behavior I asked for. That's the behavior I want to encourage, right? So if a dog is being wiggly while you scissor around the eyes, once they're still and they get a treat, but even better than that is when they hear a reward marker that tells them the treat is coming instead of just getting a treat. So that's really what's going to make a difference if we're giving a treat for good behavior, if we let them know that was the moment that they earned it. Because I see a lot of owners, mostly owners, but I've definitely seen it with groomers and with veterinary staff where they give a treat, but the dog is oblivious to the fact that the treat had anything to do with their behavior. The dog doesn't make the connection. So if we're telling the dog, like, good, you might even just use the word good, good, and give a cookie. I did do a whole episode on 2 common training words to avoid and why. And one was no and one was good. So if you want to go back and review that, there's a whole episode about those because I want you to think about the way that dog hears things at home. But many of our owners have been using reward markers of some sort at home. Okay, it could be the click of a clicker. It could be good dog. It could be a specific sound that means good job, you're getting a reward. And if they don't have one, that's okay because you can teach one. But it's going to be easier if they already know it, right? My problem with using something like a clicker in grooming is that I think a lot of trainers don't get this. In fact, I was talking to a trainer pretty recently and I said, so a groomer is often, they've got the nozzle of the force dryer under their arm and they're holding a dog's foot with their left hand and they're brushing with their right. And you want them to also operate a clicker, a device that goes click, click, and pair it with a treat. So they have to stop what they're doing to get the treat. And even if they're holding a clicker, where are they holding it? So if you guys know clicker training and you like clicker training and you're really able to do that, one of the ways you can do it is there are the raised button clickers and you can step on it and step on the button with your foot and that'll make the click sound. And then, put your brush down and pick up a treat and put it in the dog's mouth or have an assistant move forward to give the dog a treat. The other part about using a reward marker means that if you have someone assisting you, even if it's an owner who now knows, I hear that sound or I hear that word, and now I give a treat to the dog, right? So it smooths things out a little bit, but dogs will start to understand that it was that moment that earned it instead of cookies are yummy. Because cookies are yummy doesn't necessarily mean what I did earned me the yummy cookie. Right? So I want you to think about adding food can be a lot of fun for a dog. It can also be a little bit too much fun. I don't want the dogs to be so excited by food that they can't hold still. I will give you an example of someone trying to help me out with a dog while I was I was brushing her. And just the way they were holding the treat, the dog was kind of bobbing and lunging and moving a lot, which is a little bit more like we were talking about with the lickables with like classical conditioning and stuff. Just if you're going to use positive reinforcement, it should be something quick that they can just quickly eat. But some dogs are going to sit there and try to like paw at your hand to get more cookies or bark because, they know you have more cookies. Like there are lots of ways for this to go a little bit wrong, to go a little awry. But the premise is there and the principles are really effective. So if you have something very particular you are working on, something very specific, and you have a way to deliver a treat quickly and efficiently, and it's something that you enjoy doing, and it's not going to mess up your grooming shop or mess up your day. And this dog has already, you already checked with the owners about what kind of treats they can eat, if they have any dietary issues, if they have any allergies. Now, one of the things I will say about something like peanut butter is that people with peanut butter allergies can have a huge reaction. So if you're working in a grooming shop, you might not want to use something like peanut butter, because the next person who comes in may have a reaction just smelling peanut butter. And I know that sounds extreme, but from what I understand, it can be really, really a big problem, even just smelling peanut butter. Your weekly action step this week is to think about ways to add some of the happy time party vibe happy visits. Just a visit, whether that be they come into your shop or you swing by their house for your house call or for your mobile grooming, and just give out a couple cookies, have a good time, maybe touch them with a tool or two, and head off again without the expectation of being fully groomed. And see if that will help these dogs relax for us. I want to mention this week that Groom Expo 2019 is happening this weekend, and I will be there in Hershey, Pennsylvania for Groom Expo. I'm actually teaching on Saturday at 11 a.m. It's going to be a lot of fun, I hope. I would love to meet some of you there, so please come find me if you happen to be at Groom Expo, because it would be awesome to see you guys, and hopefully you guys take my class. Have a great week and stay curious. If you'd like to talk to me, you can find me through my grooming and training business, happycrittersdogtraining.com, my email, chrissy@happycritters.net, and through the Creating Great Grooming Dogs Facebook page. And we have these awesome devices in our pockets that allow us to do live video with each other. I can help you with the dog on your table. We can set up live lessons, and you may be surprised at how much we can get accomplished together via video. If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.